Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Why We Do It podcast, little chat show that looks at the stories behind the stories in amateur sports. And tonight we have the legend, Frank Tooley. I look forward to doing these podcasts every time, Frank. It's actually really good fun. But I remember when we first started doing it, I thought it's going to be really interesting when we get to Frank. And here we are. We're talking to you tonight. So thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for the notes you sent us. Like others, it's actually really helpful. I've realized that actually we're not going to follow a natural line. Are you okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I started to worry that you were having a minor panic. Yeah, you're good. Yeah. So we're not going to follow a linear line. It's impossible. You sent me your notes. The most favorite bit in it was where you said, near the end, if we need to pad this out, then we can. Like, we're really going to need to pad this out. There is so much in here. So we're going to talk about, and I'm just going to hit some headings and then we'll come back to it, but this is a bit of a teaser. We're going to talk about hypothermia. We're going to talk about your chairmanships of different clubs and different races as director. We're going to talk about you as a coach, as a professor, as an entrepreneur. We're going to get in some serious bits about cancer diagnosis and the impact that had on kind of your outlook. Of course, we're going to talk about the Tooley Award. We're going to talk about how shin splints and too many marathons got you into triathlon. We're going to talk about some of your races, your dad, who was, by all accounts, a huge influence on your life. And that's very relevant in the Why We Do It piece. Living in Chicago, Montreal, endorphins, fitness, stress relief. And why you ended up working for someone that you were not so proud of working for. We'll come back to that. I'm not quite sure what that means, but we'll explore that later. And how triathlon and the people in this room, and by the way, turnout, let's just have I don't know if I can do this without messing too much up, but there's a crowd. The room is absolutely packed with people here. So you call them the tribe. Your tribe. So let's start with something else you put in here. When you walk into a room, a crowded room, how can you work out who the triathlete is?
Within a few minutes, I'll have told you.
I've told you. And when you walk into that same room, how are you going to work out who the vegetarian is?
Within a couple of minutes, I'll have told you.
And when you walk into that room, how are you going to work out who the helicopter pilot is?
You're the only helicopter pilot.
Within a minute or two, I would have told you. Yeah. So between the two of us, we've got 2 out of 3 of those each. So we're doing quite well on the telling people about our backgrounds. Let's start with, it's a random place to start, but I think we just got to start somewhere. Let's start with the Tooley Award.
Yeah,
I think that is a key part of what this club's about.
We should definitely have this recorded, because for posterity, it might get forgotten the origin of why this award is awarded every year. So it shouldn't really be called the Tooley Award. I was the first recipient of it, and it's David Boyle who came up with the idea. I was training for Outlaw in 2008, and I was out on the very last ride I was going to do. It was like a couple of weeks. I was just about to start taper, and it was the last ride I was doing. It was hubris. I was overconfident. I'd not really had an accident at all until that point. I was coming down a hill, and there was the camber of the roundabout that I was about to try and straight line through was bad, and I just went way too fast into this roundabout and went down, smashed, typical spearing injury, went down hard. Because I lost the bike and dislocated my shoulder. The whole of the right side was wrecked. Still, my right side is quite asymmetrical to my left side since that accident. I scraped all, ankle, knee, the hip was all road rash, elbow, the shoulder was the worst one, and so I was in quite a bad state, and the origin of the Tooley Award is that that David came up with this as a complete surprise. He at the awards ceremony, which I always conduct every year, he sort of brought this out, and he'd made it from he bent some spokes into a P and a T, and got a bit of chain to make it on a block of wood. So it's this handmade, beautifully made award that he awarded to me as the person who'd had the worst accident that year. So yeah, it was a really interesting thing to happen to me, because you know, when things like that happen to you, they stay with you forever. I can now vividly recall going into shock, and had never been in shock before. I've been in shock since, but the state of being in shock was a complete surprise. I'm a first aider, so I understand shock now. But at the time, I didn't understand what shock was. And Susan, who's a nurse, was tending to my wounds and trying to basically clean me up before we went to hospital, to the ER. And I was shaking uncontrollably, and it was like, you know, I can't understand why am I shaking like this? And I said, "Oh, you're in shock." And so, you know, she knew I was in shock, and it's like, well, but no, I was really scared when it happened, and it was, you know, it was quite terrifying when I sliding across the road and there was traffic around and bashing myself as hard as that. It was really painful, and that was a shock. But you know, that was an hour ago.
But otherwise, you should feel fine.
I'm saying, you know, why am I completely out of control? And the loss of control of your own body, not being able to tell your body to stop doing something. So it's freezing cold. So what happens in shock is that sort of valves.
Sorry, Frank, I'm going to cut across you there,
yeah.
because we're
not going to have a medical. We're not going to have a medical explanation of shock.
But I am writing down a note.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to contact Yellow Jersey straight after this, the triathlon insurance company, because they should be sponsoring this podcast because of all of the accidents and incidents we talk about with people. Right. And we are talking in a room where 2 people had a crash or a fall
this weekend.
There are 2 contenders. Well, at least one serious contender. Warren just got a scratch, it's fine. And for the Tooley Award for this year. So yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, it's something we all need to be very conscious of. And I guess it comes back to the why we do it, despite the risk, despite the fact that we not only can, but unfortunately do get hurt. We still do it. Do you have any thoughts on how we manage that risk? How do you manage that? How do you think about that now?
Mentally and physically, the human body is just fantastic. It repairs itself really quickly. And I did an Ironman 10 weeks after I dislocated an AC joint. You know, I was running with a sling on. You know, keeping fit, running along, and trying not to make sure I tripped over and fell because I had a broken
kind of
shoulder.
Mad thing we do.
Because I'd cancelled Outlaw and I'd signed up
another race, and that injury's not going to get.
I'd signed up for Challenge Henley.
Everyone in this room understands that.
Yeah. So mentally, physically, you're better within weeks. Mentally, you're able to.
Seeing we're on this theme, let's put this picture up. So this is a picture of you having a segue to Julie, who's here. Who was our last guest on the podcast, talking about her hypothermia encounter. This is you basically in the throes of hypothermia at Pentland, and this was not the first time or only time this happened.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm way too skinny. Lots of triathletes are too skinny to be healthy, and I just can't handle cold water. Pentland it was too cold for me. I had a badly fitted wetsuit, and I came out the water, and I had no idea where I was. My brother-in-law was there filming it, and I still haven't watched. I watched the video of myself in this state and getting changed to go cycling once, and I've never been able to watch it since because it's so upsetting and disturbing to see myself lose control, lose the ability to think, so cold that your brain just shuts down. You're not able to make any decision. You're just on some sort of autopilot where your subconscious takes over. So from about halfway through the swim to about an hour after I started the bike, I had absolutely no idea of time passing, of where I was or who I was. Couldn't put a sentence together. I was in a terrible
And
state.
it's back to anyone who's listening to this who doesn't do triathlon, and I'm sure we've all got a few friends or family members who might listen to some of these podcasts and hear these stories. Probably, if they're not involved, would go, why would you put yourself through that, and why would you even come back if that's happened to you, and it's happened to you more than once? Back to what keeps you coming back even though you've had these experiences?
Because it defines you as a person to overcome challenges. So it's what makes us human. It's the point of being alive, is to challenge yourself, to overcome hurdles, to take yourself beyond your limit. Is what Extreme Tri is about. Well, Tri, you don't need to do
Extreme
Tri
as well.
Extreme Tri is
Former guest here, Dave from Extreme Tri World.
yeah. You want to reach your limit. I once went out for a cycle and deliberately bonked because I wanted, as a coach, I wanted to experience bonking. I'd never bonked before. I've run.
I think you need to explain that to people who are not
I don't really understand bonking.
That's running out of basically sugar and energy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've run multiple
Nothing
marathons,
else.
and with good nutrition, you never need to bonk. But I wanted to experience it, and it was really interesting to get to that point where you fall off the cliff, and all right, well, that's how you feel when you have absolutely no glycogen left in your body. Your cells are no longer able to process. You're not able to do anything anymore. Your brain shuts down. Okay, so now, and I had sugar with me.
I mean, I'm familiar with the phrase, and for those who are giggling, it's a technical sporting amateur sport or even professional sports phrase. But I don't think I've ever heard of anyone doing it to themselves deliberately. I was actually about to say, it's funny how you were talking about overcoming challenges as a normal human instinct, and I was reading about that recently, that actually if we don't have problems to deal with, we can actually, that can become problematic for us, because as human beings we're built to have to face multiple problems and to overcome them. But I think, I mean, we all have multiple challenges, multiple problems in life. Life's quite difficult generally, but then we go and create an extra challenge by putting ourselves in these, we run ourselves into a kind of bonk state of no glycogen, or into hypothermia, swim. It's just weird, isn't it? Don't you think it's weird that we should do this to ourselves?
No, I think it's weird. No, you're speaking about, this is my tribe.
Yeah.
The kind of people that I want to hang out with are the kind of people that want to experience
They do it together.
challenges and overcoming challenges.
Yeah, they all are.
If you're the kind of person that just accepts life as easy and have an easy life, it's a wasted life, and you want to put yourself under pressure, artificial pressure, because you'll get more out of life by you'll discover who you are and what your limits are if you do that. If you don't.
I feel that there's a bit of an overused phrase in some of the things I talk to some folks about, but I don't know if others are familiar with this. The Comrades Marathon, which is talked about on the podcast I shared in July, which I was interviewed on last year. One of the well-known folks in that talks about when you get to, so that's a double marathon, when you get to the 8, 9, 10 hours in of pure running, the explanation is you meet someone new, and then you realize that person is you. And then you've got to basically familiarize yourself with this new person who is you in this extreme situation, learning how to cope with that, and how to, whether you can actually cope, whether you've got the mind, attitude, even the physical strength by that point to somehow get through that. But we deliberately put ourselves in that place. I feel we've gone off on a bit of a tangent on this, so we need to move on, because there's so many things. Let's talk about growing up and your dad. You went straight. We're not going to talk too much about your own sporting background, but I was really taken by the paragraph you wrote here about your dad being such a huge influence. So
Yeah,
tell us about that.
so when my dad died of prostate cancer, so he got same. I'm reading Chris Hoy's book about terminal. It was Tour de Four on the weekend. Cole read the book. He's been in hospital for 13 days now.
Also being a guest on this, yeah.
And Cole had just read Chris Hoy's book, and Chris Hoy has the same diagnosis as my dad, that he metastasized to bone cancer by the time he realized he had prostate cancer. And when he died, it was quite a revelation to me that the reason I was so motivated to succeed and I was so ambitious and I nothing was ever good enough was because of him, and I was living my life for him, and I hadn't realized it till he died. That
How old were you at this point?
Oh, I was an adult.
Yeah,
but
how old were you when he died?
40 or something.
Right. Okay.
But he was such an he was a warrant officer in the army, and he was a real tough guy. He was a bear of a man, an absolutely huge monster of a man, and fantastic at everything he did. He was a brilliant sportsman. And he just loved sport, and he wanted me to love sport as much as he did, and he was a huge influence on me to try and succeed for him, to make him proud of me. And it was, I hadn't realized it until he died, that I was doing what I was doing to try and make him love me and to make him want to respect me,
be proud of you.
And it was, it's strange to get to be that old and not realize who you are and not live your life yourself and for your children rather than for your
I think
your
there's
father.
so many people who've had similar parental influences and that have taken them into sport in general. Some part of my story I could relate to that. How did you feel when you realized that? And in terms of looking back, were you pleased with what you'd done, or was there a different feeling about it? And then how did that kind of feel or change your perspective? Because you've obviously been doing lots of sports since then.
I don't really look back. You don't look back, and I always look forward. So I guess he influenced what sort of father I am, and grandfather. So I influenced my children in a different way to the way I certainly wouldn't be like he is, and try to make my children want to love me for their achievements, for succeeding and being a successful academic and then a successful entrepreneur. That isn't why that wouldn't cascade down to my children. So his influence on me made me a very different father to the father he was to me.
Again, I think we could probably spend about half an hour on the subject, because it's really, really interesting. One more question, I guess, from me is just, do you think this is a generational thing? I mean, people of our generation now, in our 50s and 60s, some younger here, the recognize that, but you and I perhaps, do you feel that maybe there was more of that when we were kids than there is now, or do you, I mean, you're a grandparent now, so when you look through two generations, do you think the world and young children is different in terms of influences like that?
Yeah, very much so. I think parents did try to live their lives through their children and want to
More so than
they don't now. Children are allowed to do what they want. They're allowed to be whatever religion they want, have whatever politics they want. They don't need to be the same. Don't need to vote the same as your father. You don't need to go to the same church as your father. You're free to do whatever you want now.
Maybe that's why our age groups are so crammed with people all kind of for their parental challenges. Younger folks can have it so much easier. There's going to be less competition because there won't be as many of them kind of trying to impress their parents. I think definitely that's something going on there. You talked about being a coach. Let's jump to that. you highlight you are the first coach that we've interviewed.
Yeah, I just thought
Yeah.
that would be a good thing for you to talk about, because you're going to
No, you talk about it, not me.
you
Yeah.
run out of things to make each of the interviews different from one another.
Definitely not this case. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a coach, and it's a big part of who I am. I used to be an academic, and being an academic was my life. And I would read physics books on holiday, and I would be absolutely obsessed with physics. Then I was an entrepreneur, and then when I stopped being an entrepreneur, I became a triathlete, and being a triathlete and being the best triathlete I could be and being the best coach I could be was a major part of who I am now. So I love being a coach. I love teaching. So I've always loved teaching. I've taught since I was a PhD student. I've always taught, and when I left university at the age of 40 to start my first company, I stopped teaching. I stopped standing in front of a crowd and having people pay attention to me and teaching them stuff.
Professor, just give us an insight into that. You were a professor, and what were you teaching? What was the subject? Apart from physics, can you give us a bit more detail on that?
No, that's really boring.
Just
Nobody wants to talk about physics. Physics
I'm
is
just intrigued by looking into your previous life, because I don't know that about you. What part of physics? Give us a headline. What were you teaching? You don't have to give us a full lecture.
I was. This is going to sound really big-headed, but I was a world leader in optical communications. So I was actually spent today in an all-day meeting. It started at 8:30 this morning, where I was an expert. There's a big project in Europe which is building a new medical device, and I'm the expert that they bring in to advise them about how they should be doing it better. So I spent all today on a phone call with a group of people all around Europe, teaching them how to make this medical device. It's a photonic medical device. It uses optics to measure.
See, I don't think that's boring at all. That's
But
fascinating. We're not going to go into great detail.
It's not a triathlon. This is meant to be about triathlon.
No, it's about who we are as a person. So I'm in charge here. Come on, Frank.
Yeah. I'm an optical physicist. I understand how to design optical systems and use lasers.
And I feel I'm going to get some kind of backlash, but I'm going to try anyway. You rolled into entrepreneurial kind of activities in that area?
Yes, I didn't get to teach anymore because I was then doing sales and marketing the product that we were selling. I'd invented a new polymer, and the polymer was useful in optical communications. It held the world record for being the lowest loss. When you send light through it, you could send light without any loss, and all the light that you put in at one end would get to the other end. And I held the world record for that. And so we commercialized that device that I invented, and I was doing that, and I was no longer teaching. So getting back to coaching.
Does anyone think that was boring? Just no.
So
It's absolutely fascinating, and it's such a really interesting insight into who you are. But let's go back to coaching. Talk about coaching.
So yeah, getting into coaching was getting back to something that I'm good at. So by the time I'd finished being an academic, when I left academia to be an entrepreneur, I was winning awards for teaching awards for being the most popular person who knew how to teach, because I was good at it by that side. I'd been teaching for 20 years. And when I first started teaching, I was hopeless at it. I was resented at having to be there, because I'd much rather be doing research. But by the time I'd finished teaching, I actually knew how to teach and knew how to engage people and get people's attention. So the opportunity to be a coach, I jumped at that opportunity after having been part of Joel Enoch's Jets squad, where he was my coach. After that ended, I thought, I can do this. I can be as good a coach. I can be a better coach than Joel, and I know how to teach. I'm a trained professor. I've been trained how to communicate with people. Joel hasn't. He was a nutrition expert, and so being able to stand in front of a crowd and talk to people is what I'd spent 20 years been getting good at. So getting back to getting to be a triathlon coach was something that was going back to.
And I think most people here would know you probably best from the coaching you do in the club. and your incredibly unique and helpful style. And I've only been involved in triathlon for 5 years or so.
I know what you're about to say.
No, I bet
about
you don't.
swimming behind you
No,
and,
no,
and
no.
calling your legs ridiculous.
I literally was not going to go there.
So if you swim
I
behind
promise
Jim,
you. I promise
if
I
you,
wasn't going there.
you can just about keep up with him if you swim flat out and you're swimming behind Jim and drafting off him, and you can watch his legs and they move in this sort of weird pattern that shouldn't be able to propel you forward in any efficient way. So
It's physics. It's physics. It's not art. It's physics. It's science.
it shouldn't work at all. But so Jim resented the fact that when we stopped at the end of the lane after we'd done a 200 or something, I said, "You shouldn't be kicking like that. Stop kicking like that. You should kick properly."
Frank, I wasn't going to bring it up. I think the exact words were, "Have you any idea what a mess your feet are?" So I wasn't going to do that. But thank you for bringing it up anyway, because it adds to the whole thing. I was actually going to be far more complimentary and say that in the 5 years that I've been involved, and now that I'm doing this very, very early stage coaching courses, I've obviously had to reflect in some of the kind of interchanges that we've had on the coaching course about things I've learned and kind of things I would be passing on in coaching. And I kept realizing that nearly everything I've learned from you. And I almost had to stop myself from, oh yeah, Frank at our club told me this or showed me that or let me know about this, or I mean little things like the hat being left in the sleeve of a wetsuit. How many people know that trick that Frank told us? You take your hat and goggles off in transition, and as you pull your sleeve through, you leave it in your sleeve. You leave your hat and goggles in your sleeve. Learned that from the man himself, and I've done it ever since. 3 or 4 years of never not doing that in a race ever since. So I think I was going to be more complimentary, but there we go. I think your coaching is unique, and I think that it's very valued and very welcome.
So I should do more cycle coaching. I actually know how to cycle and I'm quite a good cyclist, and I can actually get around without falling off. Falling into potholes and so we should definitely organise some cycle coaching, and I can teach people how to cycle better.
While you're giving me abuse, let's talk about your role as race director of Soul Tri and also race director of the Rig Race. I think Soul Tri is a legendary event. I think there's probably
we won event of the year. I think it was either the first or the second year that I was running it. We got event of the year. It was the most popular event. Everybody that did Soul Tri really loved it, and it's missed. I miss it, but its time had been and gone, and it's no longer possible to do it because of the change in the way that things are regulations. So it's
very sad that it doesn't exist, and maybe one day it will come back.
Yeah, something will come back, and we've still got all the kit. So maybe we'll.
But for those who, very, very briefly, because we are tight on time already. But for those folks who are new to the club or coming in future and see this, just explain what Soul Tri is very quickly in 30 seconds. What was the Soul Tri event? It was
an event that we invented to be an off-road sprint distance evening event. So it was always on a Tuesday or a Thursday evening up at Threepmouth. Swim, what was it, 1,000 meters or something, or 1,500. Yeah, 1,500 meters in Threepmuir, and cycle for about 15 kilometres on mountain bikes around the Pentlands, and then run round Harlaw for another 15 minutes or so. So it was all over in an hour and a bit, and everybody enjoyed it. People took it really seriously and raced it, and other people turned up and they'd never ridden a bike. They never put a wetsuit on. They're putting their wetsuits on with the zip at the front and up inside out, and you'd never been in cold water before, and they would walk round because Threepmuir is so shallow that they pretended that they were swimming and they were actually walking, and that was always amusing.
So the fact that you talk about cold water makes me realise I'm really sorry if people are watching this as a video, and I'm sorry for you, Frank, but there's about 20 minutes of this picture now on the podcast because I forgot to take it off. I was looking here at the screen, so I hope you don't mind that you've got 20 minutes of your hypothermia on the podcast. We'll get some other pictures up in a second. you were also race director of the rig race
Yes, I was.
because you were chair of
I was a
Harmony.
I was a runner before I got into triathlon, and being a runner locally, the Harmony Pentland Runners is the local running group, and eventually I had to be take a turn as being the chair of that and running that club for a while, a few years, and managing all sorts of problems with that. There was an incident in the Edinburgh Marathon where one of our runners cheated. She,
No, surely not.
she sort of doubled back because it's a there and back race, and she dodged and missed out 10 kilometers or something,
Right,
and
right.
so
But that's not the only time that
I
happened,
had
is
to
it?
I had to deal with that.
I have to pick the link here because when you were director of the rig race,
And then the rig race was my responsibility
and
as
didn't
well.
someone cheat in that?
Not the year that I was responsible for it, but there has been.
So what happened? What happened in the cheating event in
It
the rig
was
race?
it was a big hassle for, it was a big time bandit for me, a big
No,
overhead.
no, who was cheating in the rig race?
I don't know who was cheating.
Oh,
The
did
rig
you
race.
not?
No, it wasn't me.
Okay.
Why would you cheat? It's
So there is a link, and it's kind of lost because I thought you would remember or be part of it. But
no,
I accidentally
I don't
cheated in the rig race one year.
I
and
don't
caused a
remember what I
scandal.
had for breakfast at my age.
I accidentally cheated in the rig race one year, and it is a bit of an in joke with some people here, but we're going to move on because you don't know anything about it. So we'll leave that alone. Um, let's time is absolutely flying, and there's so much to talk about. But let's get to your own. You talked about your dad. Let's get to your own cancer diagnosis and
Change in
the
attitude.
change and
Yeah,
everything that
so
did for you.
yeah, I took triathlon really seriously to the point of obsession, to the point of being very selfish about it and not realizing that I was being selfish. So I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to train with the Jets every morning. I'd be training way too much. I spent 2015 completely exhausted, because I was training with the club and training with the Jets, and I desperately wanted to qualify for Kona. I wanted to win Ironman Wales, and I was good enough. I mean, if things had gone well on the day, I was good enough at. So I was 55 in 2015, and so I'd just gone into the 55 to 60 age group, and I was fast enough. I was a good enough cyclist and a good enough swimmer to be in the lead going into the run, and then all I had to do was just do a 4 hour marathon, and I'd get the Kona place, and I desperately wanted to qualify for Kona, and it all fell apart at Ironman Wales, and I was eighth. I was hopeless, because only the person who wins that gets the slot for Kona. Um, so that was how long ago was that? That's 10 years ago. It was my attitude to sport. Even as short a time ago as 2 or 3 years ago, I had the attitude of I want to be Scottish champion for half Ironman, because after Ironman Wales, I didn't want to do another Ironman event because
You made the point about that, and let's pick up on that. There's lots of people here who are big Keltman crews and Keltman kind of veterans. What was your comment about Keltman versus Ironman
Yeah,
Wales?
so I'd done Keltman in 2014 and Ironman Wales in 2015. I didn't do another Ironman after Wales because Wales just broke me. Wales was horrendous. It's just the most awful race. You're either in granny gear going up a slope like this, or you're going downhill with your brakes full on, screaming with your eyes shut, going, "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck! Like, why is this hill so steep? Why are my brakes slowing me down enough?" And then you go straight back into granny gear, and you're just going like that for 6 hours.
You made a
And
comment in your notes about comparing Keltman and
yeah, so
Ironman
I'd
Wales.
say that Ironman Wales was much harder than Keltman. Keltman, you do it. It's a long day out, but you enjoy it, and it's good fun. Ironman Wales, I hated every minute of it. It was just an ordeal, and I've not done an Ironman since then because it was such. The swim was the sea was going up and down by 100 meters. Everybody was sick. Everybody lost their breakfast in the swim because the sea was going up and down like this. And you go out on the cycle, and the cycle was just an ordeal. And then you got on the run, and it was.
So once again, we've gone off on a tangent. I'm definitely not going to make a joke about this because I'm going to bring you back to. You were talking about the cancer diagnosis and the impact that had on.
Oh yeah, I used to be really ambitious about sport, and I wanted to be the Scottish champion for half Ironman. And at my age group, I wanted to qualify for Kona. But now, since the cancer diagnosis, I'm not so selfish about myself, and I want to enjoy training. I don't want to be. It's a different attitude to not being governed by a spreadsheet. So I used to. There's a spreadsheet running my life, and I have to go out. It's 10 o'clock at night, but I've not done a run today, so I've got to go out and do a run for 40 minutes at 10 o'clock at night. And that was my life before cancer. And then since cancer, it's like, why am I doing this? It's not important compared to your health. It's unhealthy to train that much and to be so obsessive about running your life by a spreadsheet that says, I have to go out for a 3-hour ride today. I have to do a 100-mile ride at the weekend. That's unhealthy. It's much more healthy to enjoy training. Just go out. I went out for a run this afternoon, and it's a 45-minute run.
It's really interesting how injury or illness can bring that change. I'm probably going through that right now myself. I was probably that person off the spreadsheet and the timing kind of the program for training, different distances of events, but same kind of intensity. Now injury, but do you feel as a coach that is that something you see that you as a message you want to bring into your coaching at all, or do you think people have to just take that journey on their own and make that discovery that somehow themselves? Yeah, because there are people in this room who still are training that hard.
Yeah, so it's a mental thing as well as a physical thing. So you have to respect both physically. You can do yourself a lot of harm by overtraining. I was an unhealthy weight. I got down to 72 kilos. I wasn't strong enough because I was training too hard, and I'd lost muscles because of trying to be lightweight for going up hills that were too steep. You want to be light, so you can be unhealthy in your mind and in your body through overtraining, and coaches need to be aware and on the alert for people's mental health as well as their physically. Make sure that they're not abusing their diet.
I'm feeling a segue to your comment. I'm not even looking at your notes, but I've read them and I'm just remembering bits in them, to yoga and to strength and conditioning. You talk about that as well.
Yeah, so I was a runner, so I got into running, and running was how I got back to being fit again, and being the shape I am, and wanting to have the shape that I am now. Running, if you just run, you're going to get injured, and that's what happened to me. And I was ignorant
about it. And this is what brought you into triathlon.
Yeah, because of getting injured. Because if you run too much, you will end up injured. You'll get plantar fasciitis. You'll get shin splints. You'll do yourself damage by running too much if you're not doing strength and conditioning. If you're not doing yoga. It doesn't matter what you do. Yoga happens to be something that I really enjoy doing because I'm bendy, but other people hate yoga because they're not bendy, and you gravitate to what you're good at. People prefer to do Pilates, and whatever it is you do, you have to do something to protect yourself, to build up strength. Don't. A good coach will tell you, don't go out for a 40-minute run. Do 15 minutes of yoga instead. The 40-minute run, you might think you're making yourself a better runner by doing that 40-minute run. You're actually making yourself a better runner by doing 15 minutes of yoga. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of strength and conditioning often is absolutely the prescription for success of being a better cyclist, a better swimmer, a better runner. Nothing will make you a better triathlete than making yourself stronger through doing weights.
It's again, it's another theme that comes up episode after episode. People recognizing the strength and condition kind of importance, which for so many years we didn't even know or just neglected. And sometimes I really wish, I'm sure you must probably the same, I wish we could go back to being 20 years old now with the amount of information that young athletes have, the understanding of what is not a good idea to do and what is a good idea, things like strength and conditioning, and not hammering every single session as hard as you can. I wish we could get those bodies back and just have another go at it with that better understanding, don't you? Yeah. Time is about where we would be wrapping up, but I'm going to let this run a bit longer because I just knew we would probably need to run a bit longer. We're going to ask folks in the room for some questions in a minute. I'm going to just bring in the one thing that we're trying to do with these podcasts a little bit more recently, is to just bring in some pictures. I've already shown for way too long one picture of you, unfortunately, but you kindly sent me a couple of others. So let's just talk the stories behind these pictures, because we haven't really got into your races or your events, and actually that's almost what this podcast is about. Is not about the details of the races, but there's lovely stories. So maybe these pictures take us down that path. And actually, talking about the Tooley Award, I should have put this up at the very beginning, because what the heck is going on here, Frank? I mean, if you're asking for the Tooley Award in this picture, and letting people kind of lean in to see it, Frank seems to be going downhill in a race on a bike with his hands in the air.
Yeah, so I still wear that helmet and those gloves. The shoes are gone, the bike's gone. Notice I'm the only one wearing a rain jacket. I probably set off thinking, it might rain, I might get cold, so I'll put a rain jacket on.
You're also the only one not holding onto the handlebar. You just saw the camera and you thought, I'll get a quick shot in here. What race is this? Is that Kelpman?
I have no idea. No.
It looks rugged and Scottish.
No.
You probably have a better chance of recognizing this picture.
That was Mallorca. So
is this one of your favorite races?
Yeah. So your best moment. You always ask what's your best moment and your worst moment. The worst moment was going into shock after falling off my bike a week before Outlaw.
There's a few contenders though. Ironman Wales didn't sound like a right laugh.
No, that wasn't fun.
This is a positive.
Yeah. So coming out the water at in Mallorca was just the most wonderful event. It was the European Championships, and it was just a fantastic event where you went into the sea, and the sea was just wonderful temperature. It wasn't cold. You didn't need a wetsuit, and you got out. You're swimming along, and you could see fish swimming underneath you, and you swam out and you swam back, and when you finished the swim, it was like, oh, do I really have to get out of the water? I'd rather just stay in and do another lap. Yeah. And this is me running out the water, about to get on my bike.
You're definitely looking a lot happier in that picture than you were when you came out the water.
It was glorious. It was 40 degrees. It was amazing doing the run. You don't feel the heat when you're cycling because you're sweating, and the sweat coming off you cools you. You're cycling along and you feel cool, and then you start the run and it was 40 degrees. It was literally 40 degrees, not exaggerating. And it was absolute mayhem. And I can handle hot weather because I build, and every aid station you were just pouring water. You weren't drinking the water, you were just pouring the water, trying to cool yourself down, and it was all evaporating. By the time you got to the next aid station, you were dry again because you were sweating so much. It was just a great race.
There's other people here who've done a race in 40 degrees and not so positive a kind of impression of that. This is a lovely picture. I just like the professionalism of this picture, but I also love the fact you didn't pay for this picture either.
No, I didn't. Sorry, Bob. Yeah, so the bike is red, black, and I've got better wheels than that now. I've got. That isn't the best picture with the bike.
That is serious. I mean, look at the kind of crazy kind of aero helmet and the look of determination on your face there.
Yeah. So yeah.
But again, you've got one hand on your brakes and one hand on your tri bars.
I was
out of balance.
I was changing something. But So yeah, I love cycling. So I'm not a great runner because I don't run enough. Because I just love cycling. I love bikes. So I've got lots of bikes, and I love my bikes.
Okay. let me just get that taken off, and I'll go back to this. So, any questions from people? And I'm not sure the microphones are going to pick you up because I'm still learning how these microphones work. So I'll repeat the question. So keep it short if you can. Questions for Frank?
About physics.
Story. I want to hear the Braveheart.
We want to hear the Braveheart story. That was hypothermia as well.
Yeah. So Braveheart.
We'll put the picture back up. We've had it up for too long.
I had I turned up for it was a half Ironman, Ballachulish, and swam. It was two laps in the water, and the water was absolutely Baltic. And I got out the water, and this Marshall, she sort of grabbed hold of me and to sort of hold me up as if I was going to collapse, and said, "Are you all right?" And I didn't understand why she thought I was. It was probably because I looked like that, with the sort of all the muscle tone had gone from my face, and my face had collapsed with hypothermia. And I got out. So I said, "No, of course I'm all right. I'm in a race here. Get out of my way. I've got to get on my bike and win this race." And I got to the bikes. I'm a decent swimmer, and I get out the water first in my age group, and fairly near the pointy end, and I got to where the bike park was up the harbour ramp, and my bike was the only bike there. It was the last one out of the water, and it really echoed what you said last week, last month, that
Julie,
you completely lose any sense of time when you've got hypothermia. Your brain goes into this sort of autopilot, your subconscious takes over, and you have absolutely no idea what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you transition from, you get your wetsuit on, start cycling, and you're not really there. You're not in control of your own thoughts. And it's the weirdest thing to have hypothermia.
Do you think so? I don't think I've ever been in that state. I don't know how many other people here, apart from Julie, have been in that state. But do you think it's something, now that we've heard this from you, that we would recognize if it happened to us, or we just wouldn't?
No,
recognize?
you lose the ability for rational.
I have no idea.
You're not able to analyze your own behavior when you're as cold as that. There's nothing going on up top. You're brain dead.
We're gonna switch it to positive stories, because there's been some pretty gruesome kind of things all the way through this. It's all been the hardship and the difficulty. But let's do one more of those, because you talked about Gullen, and there's 3 challenges at Gullen in the race there that you've highlighted.
Gullen was great for anecdotes. So every year we did Gullen. I used to do Gullen every year, regardless, and it's just a fantastic race. I recommend people, if people don't know Gullen, it's a fantastic race, because you can sleep in your own bed the night before, and you just drive for an hour and you get to Gullen. That's one of the best things about it. And you turn up there, and every year something goes wrong. There's always something that goes wrong. It was my first ever Olympic distance, and I went, and the start at Gullen is a beach start, and everybody runs into the water and runs through the waves, and the waves are crashing over you, and then it's fine for the first bit, but then you have to go to a buoy, and everybody sort of converges, and there's been no separation of people yet, because everybody's got there at the same time, so that everybody arrives at the buoy at the same time, and you get dunked, and you get hit, and that the first time, I remember vividly the first time that ever happened to me, having a full-blown anxiety attack, and not knowing what an anxiety attack was at the time, and just being completely bewildered about what was going on in my head, that I'd been hit and dunked, and I'd swallowed water, and I was this far away from the beach. The buoy is here and the beach is there. It's like, all I have to do is stand up and walk out, and I'll be fine, instead of having to swim for the next 35 minutes in this freezing cold water with these waves and these people hitting me. I don't need to do that. I can just get out and walk to the beach, and then go off somewhere and have a cry or something, but, but I didn't. You know, you stop.
Kept going.
You stop and you give yourself a talking to, and you keep going. You keep just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Jellyfish?
Jellyfish is another year.
Different year.
A different
all
year.
wasn't in 1 year.
A different year. Every jellyfish in the North Sea decided to come to Gullen Bay, and it was just astonishing. I mean, Kelpman was a jellyfish disaster. I bit a jellyfish. A jellyfish swam into my mouth and gave me ulcers inside my lip and on my nose, and my face was all swollen up. I Kelpman, it was
If you're
horrible.
listening to this podcast and you've never done triathlon before and you really think you might want to give it a go, it's not as bad as Frank is portraying.
So jellyfish, and I have a bad history. The jellyfish at Gullen one year, it was just a soup of jellyfish. I mean, you just went into the water, and there was more jellyfish than water. You were swimming through jellyfish, and as you went through your hand through the water, it was like bump, 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 and your head was going bump, bump, bump into jellyfish, and it was just the most bizarre experience. There were two guys from the council there, and they had one spade between them, and they were burying the jellyfish.
Tried to hide them.
Because they'd all washed up. All the jellyfish were, the beach was carpeted with jellyfish. And it was so ridiculous. It's like, there's a million jellyfish, and they've got one spade, and they're trying to dig a hole, put some of the jellyfish into a hole, and put some sand on top of it, as if that's going to do any good.
We need to try and wrap up. Let's see if there's any more questions from anyone. One more question if there's. I've got a question if there aren't any, just to finish us off with. Anyone? Okay. Let's talk positive stories, Frank. What are the best things that have happened? You talked about Mallorca. What are the most positive memories of any amateur sports that you've got when you look back and think of the things that you're most pleased about, or you reflect on kind of most positively? What springs to mind, and then what's in the top 5 kind of quick things of positive memories?
People. It has to be meeting lovely people and people that you identify with and share. One of the things that I always remark on about Pentland triathletes is that you can know somebody for 10 years and they don't know what you do and you don't know what they do, and you've been cycling together for hours and chatting, and you've run together, you've swum together, and you've known each other for years, and you've absolutely no interest in the fact that they're a teacher and I'm a teacher, or they're
a really interesting physics professor,
or that all you talk about is what you have in common, which is a love of endurance sport and nutrition and training and everything that goes around sport, like bikes and yoga and everything else. It's not just the triathlon; it's everything else that goes around it. Illness and fitness and injuries and
it's the tribe.
Yeah, the tribe. Yeah. It's the feeling of belonging to a group that share the same interests and passions that you do.
Understand each other when we're talking about some of these crazy, niggling little things about how best to take your hat off.
Not feeling that you're weird.
Well, we're all weird, but that's fine because we're together.
we're equally weird,
exactly.
So it's acceptable.
That's not what I was expecting, but I think it's a really lovely kind of sentiment to start bringing it around. Although you did remind me that, as you were telling me that you were the first male member of Pentland Tri, and you are currently the second longest.
Yeah. So when I joined, it was a Pentland Triathletes Tri Day. I went along. I was injured from running. I couldn't run, so I went along and did the cycle and the swim part of it. And I hadn't realised at the time that it was a group of Ali's mates. Ali Gordon founded the club, and it was basically Pentland Ladies Triathlon Club. And it was her and 6 or 7 of her friends yummy mummies who were the triathlon club. And I turned up and it's like, oh, I'm the only guy here. But this is wrong. And within a few years, it was 6.
So for how long were you the only male member?
Oh no, weeks.
Okay.
I immediately recruited others.
Would have got a bit weird if it was years.
Yeah. We were on an expansion drive to grow from being a very small club of a group of women friends.
And there's one member who's been in the club a long
Caroline was one of those yummy mummies. So
still is. Yeah. Good. Frank, wow. Thank you so much. I knew it was going to be a pleasure. I hope you don't mind the fact we jumped around all over the place and we didn't follow a kind of logical line. But I just didn't think that it made sense to do that with this amazing and intricate and detailed story that you have, which is absolutely fascinating. And honestly, I think I could easily go for another hour, but it's going to look weird if we have 2 hours on the podcast by the time this is finished. So thank you so much for this. We might have to get you back in a year. We'll explore some of the other subjects in a bit more depth. But really appreciate you coming on. You pulled the crowd. We're gonna have to find a different venue if this carries on, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Some of them are really kind of deep and personal, and thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it, and thanks everyone for coming and joining in. Without further ado, we'll play the exciting outro and end it there. Thanks very much. Talk to you all soon.